Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another tropical update here by Age Weather Forecast. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the potential for a couple systems that could possibly develop in the Atlantic and even the Pacific. We're going to be looking at the potential for cristobal in the Atlantic, especially. We have very good, a lot of confidence in likely seeing cristobal. We also have Invest 92L, and we also have a tropical disturbance in the Pacific, but we're going to be mainly focusing on the Atlantic because we could definitely have a potential for cristobal and maybe even whether it's a tropical storm or a hurricane moving into the Gulf of Mexico by next week. So I'm going to be looking at all of that in today's video, including Invest 92L and also the Pacific. So be sure, if you live in the Gulf Coast, you definitely want to watch the whole video because this could very well become a system it could form around June 5th, June 6th, it could form around then, and then possibly affect areas in Texas and Louisiana by June 10th. Also, of course, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe as well, and also be sure to share the video to any friends or family. But without further ado, let's get this tropical update. So here we are looking at the 5-day tropical weather outlook here for the tropical Atlantic. Here you do see, of course, Invest 92L right here. This could very well become a system, but I highly doubt this will actually become cristobal, in my opinion. I do not see anything happening with this, especially it's going to be moving in some cooler waters. But here we have a 50% chance now for the next 48 hours to the 5 days. Of course, yesterday was actually a 30% chance, so they have increased the possibility of it becoming a tropical storm. So it has a 50% chance, which is a medium possibility, within the next 2 to 5 days. As we also look at the eastern Pacific, here we have, of course, the system right here off the coast of Central America. This is, of course, we have that possibility. This could definitely become a system the same time as the potential for cristobal in June. So, of course, we have a possibility for two systems at the same time. One in the eastern Pacific and one in the other side of Central America. So, going to be seeing like these exact, almost not too far from just on the other side of Central America. So, this actually has a 50% chance within the next 48 hours. So from now on to the next 2 days, this has a 50% chance of developing, which is a medium, and also has a 70% chance within the next 5 days. So this could very well affect areas like Guatemala, could also affect El Salvador, and maybe in parts of southern Mexico, as you see, can go up the coast and even near not even too far from Nicaragua. So we're definitely going to be seeing some Central America countries and also maybe even Mexico to get affected by this. It's going to be possibly moving up the coast and maybe even make landfall. So this is very well seems to be a big threat as it has increased development, possibly for development. So here we're going to be looking at here we're going to be looking at the GFS model for both or for all these systems. So let's start with the Pacific system. Next 36 hours. Very likely could be seeing, this could possibly become a tropical system by then, or maybe even a tropical depression. In the next 36 hours, we're going to have a possible tropical depression at 1,010 millibars, bring extremely heavy rain across parts of the Atlantic. For parts of the Pacific. And as we now continue to move on next coming hours, you're seeing it's going to continue to strengthen. This is now the next 54 hours. So this is by Sunday, May 31st. This is where we have this potential tropical system off the coast of Central America near El Salvador, moving up the coast on Honduras. So not Honduras, sorry. Going to move near Guatemala, and this is going to continue to move up the coast there, and it could possibly make landfall by the next 72 hours. But this is does not die early. You can have another system developing right here with the next 150 hours. This is now June 4th. We have another system right here by June 4th, having something developing, or once again having another system off the coast of Central America. But here we are now at June 5th. Watch right here. We can have something develop right here for the Atlantic that could possibly be cristobal. But we also have this thing in the Eastern Pacific that's at 997 millibars, and this could also very well make a second landfall. But look at by June 6th, we have a tropical system that does possibly form up the coast of Cancun. And if you guys did not notice, or if I've said multiple times that in June, I think we can have something to develop off the coast of Cancun and hit the Gulf and make landfall on the Gulf Coast. I've said that multiple times, and this is very well exactly what I said. So if this actually does pull through, this will be my prediction would have been right. And as when I move later on here, this thing's going to continue to move up into the Gulf Coast. By June 6th, this thing's a massive system bringing extremely heavy rain for parts of Mexico, Cuba, and we also have still this tropical system in the eastern Atlantic or this eastern Pacific continue to bring that major flooding there, and then it finally moves up the east coast of, or does move up the southern coast of Mexico and kind of falls apart. Also with June 7th, now the Atlantic, this could very well be a massive tropical system here. Look at the size of this system. By the precipitation could bring in rain all the way from Mexico to Mississippi by this point. Extremely heavy rain. And this thing could kind of stall up there for a little bit and bring in flooding rains for Louisiana and parts of Mexico. And by June 9th, this thing will be strengthened to 998 millibars, and then it could possibly be 995 millibars by the time it makes landfall for parts of eastern Texas, possibly for Houston, possibly for areas off just on the southern coast of south of Houston there. And this could very well bring extremely strong flooding. And look, as we go into June 11th, this low pressure kind of goes back off the coast and it stays at 993 millibars. The longer this thing's in the ocean, the better the chance of it for strengthening. It has all of this right here. All of this. It has all of this. It has so much ocean to go through. So this thing definitely has a possibility to strengthen to maybe either a tropical storm or maybe even a hurricane. So we're going to continue to watch and monitor that. And it's going to continue to bring in flooding range for parts of the South Central. So that's what we're looking at for those other systems. As we now look at the CMC model here. Here we have that tropical system that's 36 hours for parts of the Eastern Atlantic there, sitting there at 1,007 millibars. And as we now move the next 60 hours, it's at 1,004 millibars. And then it goes throughout parts of Mexico, and that low pressure system kind of sits out there into Cancun. And then as we now get later into June 4th, here we have this system developing off the coast, or just south of Cancun, and going up the coast and affecting Cancun there. And it's going to be sitting at 1,003 millibars there. It could possibly stall a little bit, where it can strengthen a ton. And by the next 240 hours, by June 8th, this thing is going to be at 1,001 millibars, sitting off the coast of Texas. So CMC does show actually not only strength or developing a lot sooner, it's also showing it possibly affecting Texas a lot sooner. So we're going to have to. GFS shows June 11th, and then CMC says possibly maybe June 10th or June 9th. As we look at the total precipitation here we have all this precipitation for this development right here. You can see feet of rain, and then this could bring in a ton of rain for Cancun. You can kind of see the track. It's going to go like this, it's going to go like that. And obviously, as we get closer on, we're going to see a lot more precipitation, likely for Texas and Louisiana. Louisiana, you guys won't get a direct hit based on this, but you guys will definitely get impacts of this. But of course, it has days and almost weeks to change, so this game could very well maybe even make landfall in Louisiana, or could even take a turn to the Florida. Who knows? But as of right now, Texas is the one in the threat. I can't actually predicted this happening in June. So this actually does happen. My prediction was actually correct. As we look at the 10-meter winds here and knots, here we have this tropical system, of course, in the eastern Pacific, bringing in around 30 knots out here off the coast of Central America. And as we now move later on, the next 54 hours, it kind of gets a stronger gust, possibly 37 knots there, 34 knots. And then it's make landfall. And then here we have another system here. This is by June 3rd. By June 6th, we have, of course, another system off the coast of Eastern, another tropical system likely off the coast of Eastern America. That could Central America, not Eastern America, Central America, and this could possibly bring in around 40 knots, 45 knots in that second system. But watch this right here, June 6th, we have something developing off the coast of Cancun and off the coast of Mexico, right there, right here. We had something developing between Cuba and in Cancun. It's going to continue to move on into the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico, and by June 7th, this thing can already possibly bring 40 knots, which is of course, going to be tropical storm force winds. And then it kind of stalls a little bit, and that's where it can definitely strengthen and get some really strong wind gusts for parts of eastern Texas there. As we now take a look at the, let's go and check out the 850 meter winds here. I know it's going to be a lot higher, but we're going to see how strong these winds will be in the higher atmosphere. So this tropical system here in the eastern Pacific, this could very well possibly bring in around 50 knots, 60 knots there in the higher atmosphere. And then as we now look at around June 5th, June 6th, here we have this system developing across between Cancun and Cuba. This is June 6th, could possibly already bring in around 50 knots here, really close to 50 knots at that point. and this thing's going to definitely strengthen a lot. Could possibly bring it up to 64 knots here in the higher atmosphere. I know this is not real-time winds. We just looked at real-time winds, but I just want to see what it looked like in these high atmosphere. And this thing will strengthen a lot more before landfall. And this thing could very well bring some really strong winds higher in the atmosphere for Texas. And I would not doubt as we get closer, these real-time winds will be almost equivalent to this as well. Would not doubt this actually becomes a Hurricane Cristobal. As we now look into the vorticity signature, which is cyclonic rotation, just like tornadoes, but for hurricanes or tropical systems. Here we have a kind of a vorticity signature right here in that dark red, that super almost black. That's where we have a lot of vorticity there, and it's that vorticity signature. And this will possibly now move up the coast of Central America and possibly even affect southern Mexico. This is by the next 66 hours here. And then it is going by the next, really around 90 hours there. And of course, as we get now closer to June 5th or June 6th, we have a new system, of course, in between Cancun. And that's going to be heading to the central Gulf there. And look at this vorticity signature, very well defined. And then, as you see, it kind of stalls a little bit. This is where it is right here, right in this general area, the vicinity of the Western Gulf. This is going to kind of stall a little bit where it can strengthen a ton. And then you see a better vorticity signature as it possibly makes landfall just south of Houston. And as you see, that vorticity signature kind of dies down a little bit more. As we now look at the rain that's being evaporated right here, really the higher the number, obviously the better the chance of having favorable conditions. And also seeing that system, as you see, Eastern Pacific has a ton of evaporated water out here, coming out here up to possibly 4 inches out here. So we're definitely going to be seeing very favorable conditions with evaporation based on the so actually a notification, but yeah, very favorable conditions throughout the Eastern Pacific. And then you kind of see the system right here by the next 54 hours here. You have the system right here off the coast of Central America. You kind of see it right there. You can very well see it, and then it does make that landfall by the next really 8 to 90 hours there. It kind of makes landfall between that southern Mexico area. And as we look now into the system for the into that possible crystal ball by the 5th or 6th, here we have it right here by the 5th. We have very favorable. You can kind of see it right there off the coast of Mexico, right there in between Cuba. You can definitely see the system developing. You can see the higher amount of evaporation, and then by June 6th, you have it right there in the central Gulf, evaporating up to 4 inches of rain there. And that's going to continue to move, of course, actually kind of showing it. Low pressure system is going to be right here, as you see. They're going to have a lot of evaporation right here, as you see. This definitely be seeing the strongest storms based on this. As we now look at the now we're going to look at the conditions here. Now we looked at the models. Now we're going to be looking at the conditions, if it's favorable or not for these systems to develop. In Eastern Pacific, this is very favorable. We have very little wind shear whatsoever, of course. Like, we have no shear in this general vicinity there. And the Eastern Pacific, so very favorable for that area. Nothing else to say. Very favorable for that system to continue to strengthen and develop there. As we now get into June 3rd. June 3rd here, we have a pretty strong jet stream right here. You can kind of see right there. You're going to be seeing quite the strong winds throughout parts of all the way to the Gulf to parts of the tropical Atlantic. That's going to bringing in not extremely unfavorable conditions, but we have a decent amount of shear. But as we now get into June 5th, we have a lot less shear. Not only in the, look how much less shear we have in the Gulf of Mexico. Very favorable conditions. And this could possibly develop right here. And as you see, we have not as much shear as we did earlier on June 3rd. We're still going to see this jet stream right here. It's going to be getting cut off. It's going to kind of dip more to the south like that. So, not seeing extremely unfavorable condition anymore. And as we now move into around June 6th, look at this. We have actually very favorable conditions now right here off the coast of Cancun and parts of the bay right here. Very little shear. So this is very favorable at this point. We have little shear in the whole Gulf. Look at all this we have like no shear whatsoever in these areas. Nothing more than 34 knots in the higher atmosphere. Nothing. So let me just say, there's very favorable conditions to see a tropical system moving and developing near developing in the Atlantic, in that general area. As we look at the SSCs, current SSCs, as you see, we have very warm waters for the Eastern Pacific, this is exactly why we have that tropical system developing next coming days. And as you see, very warm or above average SSTs throughout much of the western Gulf of Mexico, and of course right here, this is where we're going to be seeing that system potentially to develop. And I see we have warmer SSTs, and as we continue to go on closer into June, who knows if these SSTs kind of warm up a lot. Hope you guys enjoyed the video though. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and bye guys.